Oh, I've got to get there to school at 3 o'clock.
You going out early?
3 o'clock. They got a barbecue pit, everything going on out there tonight.
6 o'clock.
Aaron, barbecue, all that going on.
We'll have the goodies iced down. Yeah, I'm gonna have a few in drop.
Yeah, what?
I'll have a few in drop.
60-second. I don't count down.
How do you figure?
Well, I'm going by the world clock. On. We ready? Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to reconvene an open session, and I'd like to begin with commissioner comments, and I'll begin with Mr. Wagner.
I wasn't ready, but I'll go ahead. I really don't have a whole lot to say today. A lot of functions last week. We did physician assistance for University downtown Hagerstown, over at new building there behind St. Mary's, or not new building, but that's where it's going to be. It's an amazing thing to go in, and if you can take a tour. Nurse Recognition Week, or month, I guess it was. We went over there. So we did a lot going on. We tried to support everybody this past week, and that's about all I have to say.
Commissioner Baker?
I have no reports.
Hey, Commissioner Kiefer? Commissioner Court?
I just want to say thank you to the Budget and Finance, and also the, Public Relations teams getting everything ready for tonight. They spent a lot of time working on tonight's hearing, and just want to say thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. I did attend the annual Police Week Fallen Heroes event at St. Episcopal's Church, Clear Spring. They were honoring 15 officers from the community that had lost their lives. I did attend Caden Conrad and Brandon Dillman's Eagle Court of Honor ceremony on Saturday, and I also had a chance to be at the HCC graduation ceremony this past Saturday. It was a very warming event to see so many happy students and all their hats decorated. So it was a very positive weekend for Washington County. One of the things, I see the sheriff here, I think I've sent you an email, and to Rob, the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting, that exit on 81 at Morgansville is horrendous. I was out by there 3 times this past week. A tractor and trailer was trying to exit right onto Morgans Avenue to go towards Pennsylvania Avenue, and it was traffic on a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, backed up 20, 30 cars. I actually took the other lane, turned left, and looped around. So if that could be brought back up at our TAC meeting and keep that on the burner, because I think there is some accident waiting there. So Sheriff or anybody, Rob, so thank you for that. One final comment. I'm going to turn it over to our attorney, Kirk Downey. His daughter, Erin, won a contest over the weekend, and I'd like for you to brag about your daughter. She's going to watch this later.
She's in 6th grade at E. Russell Hicks, and as part of the curriculum, participated in the National History Day program, and she advanced to states, and the state contest was this weekend, and she received an award for a project sponsored by the Maryland Historical Trust, recognizing a project that has to do with historic preservation. And I just point out that there were a number of students from Washington County schools who were participating in that event, and it's really impressive to see the amount of effort and skill that the students put into this program. It's a good program, and they made the county look good.
Thank you for that update, Kirk. I'm sure you'll appropriately upgrade her allowance for that award. Thank you very much. That concludes our commissioner reports and comments. Is there any reports from county staff? Please come forward. Any order.
Good afternoon. I'll just be brief. I just want to provide an introduction to, we have representatives from Washington County Goes Purple here today, Councilwoman Emily Keller, Vicki Sterling from the Health Department, and Sheriff Mullendor. They're here this afternoon to provide an update on activities that have they've been able to provide in the community, partially that would have been funded by an earlier contingency request in early FY19. They will also provide some updates on what plans for a future kickoff event, August 31st, that they requested $2,500 for an FY20. There isn't a vote needed today for that because it is under the threshold where it can be approved through the Grant Management Office and County Administrator. Just want to give you an opportunity to provide your updates at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us today. We just wanted to come in about a year later from when we were here initially to provide you an update as to what we were able to accomplish. And Commissioner Wagner and Commissioner Meinl-Smith, you guys weren't here at the initial time. So just to give you a little update. Hopefully you are aware of Washington Goes Purple is a substance abuse awareness campaign that's set out to educate our community and our youth about the dangers of prescription painkillers. You guys probably saw today the headline in Herald Mail is that in fiscal year 18, overdose deaths were up in Washington County. I think this epidemic is getting less press, which makes people think it's getting better, but in reality it is getting worse. And in our humble opinion, we think the way out of this epidemic is through education. We are aware 80% of people on heroin begin with prescription painkillers. So our mission is to talk to our kids about the dangers of prescription painkillers to try to prevent addiction, to educate our community about the importance of locking up medication and properly disposing of it, and then to Narcan train. So if we find ourselves in a position where Narcan is needed, you're able to help save that person and hopefully provide them an opportunity to seek recovery. So we just have some statistics we wanted to go over. Our kickoff last year was August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day. And we really had a big push in September where we turned as much as possible purple. The buildings, our shirts, ribbons, our porch lights. And we did that as a way to draw awareness to the initiative, to show our community that we're all in this together and to really rally behind a movement that means a lot to all of us. Over September, we were able to Narcan train about 230 people. We collected approximately 165 pounds of unused and unwanted medication off of our streets. Several hundred businesses participated in some way, whether that be raising awareness or raising money. We held over 60 events, and we were able to convey our message to approximately 150 parents, students, educators, and community members at an after-school event in every high school in the county that the Sheriff's Department helped organize. We do have a partnership with the SGA for the school system, and we have a high school senior who attends our meeting. That way she can provide us the high school perspective on this initiative. And we also we're able to award a $1,000 scholarship for every high school in the county. Those results are going to come out tomorrow, but we had 27 applicants who spoke very open and honestly as high school seniors about the effects of the opioid epidemic that they've seen. So we were happy to be able to provide that.
So currently and moving forward, we've continued our movement, but we've expanded the conversation this year to include mental health and just substance abuse in general. We've also partnered with other initiatives in the health department to include infectious diseases. And each month we've been trying to bring up a new topic, be it Prevention Week or alcohol awareness or teen dating violence. We really try to get in front of as many children as possible. And while September is the month to go purple, we still want to have a presence every month so people don't forget. Through March and April, we did walking takebacks, which we went into the community with the Sheriff's Department, City Police, and Fire Department and knocked on doors, door to door, and asked people for our unwanted medication. And through that, we got about 205 pounds during those 3 walking take-backs, but we also had conversations that were very important. I know one mother pulled me aside and asked how she could get help for her daughter whose father was an addict. So as we move forward, and the Narcan, we did train over 230. Our numbers are extremely high as far as training Narcan. We're 3rd in the state, which I'm very proud of. And when you look at our numbers of overdoses and the amount of Narcan that's been administered, it's administered about 85% of the time. So that just enables us to help people until they're ready to help themselves and to get into treatment.
This is an extremely important program, as Councilwoman Keller said. Really, the way out of this is education, and it's going to be generations. It's not going to occur overnight, but to keep that message out there constantly. That's why we're working with the Washington County Public Schools. Our hope is not only in the high schools, but at the middle school level, because that's really where it starts. It's well below the high school level. And, you know, if we don't start that message early and keep them from, you know, doing prescription painkillers and other things, we're not going to stop this epidemic. It's just going to exponentially get worse. And, you know, from a law enforcement perspective, you know, we respond to overdoses 4 or 5 times a week at minimum. And it's not getting better, so.
So we would like to invite you guys to participate. Our walking drug takebacks, as Vicki talked about, this may seem like a very strange concept. We're pretty sure we're the first organization that has done it, but we literally went door to door and knocked on doors and said, here's why we're here, here's the messaging, we want to make sure your medication is safe and locked up, and if you have unwanted medication to get rid of, we'll take it, the officers take it. And it was probably the most rewarding thing I've done, because as a community member, you see a volunteer, a police officer, a member of the fire department. It's a great community interaction, so we would love if you guys would like to participate with us. The response from the community was overwhelmingly positive. Even if they didn't have prescription medication or unwanted medication, they were just happy to see us out trying to clean up the streets.
Did I hear 205 pounds?
Yes.
That's a lot of pills.
It is a lot of pills.
And on top of that, then we did the 10th and the 17th, and then the 27th was National Take Back Day, and they collected 800. So if you think about
Tons.
what we'd already taken, usually that would have really made a dent in what was collected, but it didn't. And there were people, I can tell you, that had medication in their house for 5 years, bags of pain medication, because say, I think one lady said her mother died 5 years ago, and she went in the attic and got it.
May 25th at Premium Outlets, we will be doing the shred event and also drug take back at the Premium Outlets. So you're more than welcome to come out and join us for that as well.
And lastly, our kickoff again this year will be August 31st at City Park. Tony Hoffman, who is a professional BMX rider, now Olympic BMX coach, will be our speaker, because he is a person that is living in recovery and is able to coach at the Olympics. So he's coming to tell his story. And then, of course, for September, we'll be going purple again. So if you guys would participate and help us raise awareness in the community, we would greatly appreciate it. And we appreciate your support for our kickoff as well.
Any other questions for the folks? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Continuing with staff reports, who's next? Anyone else for staff reports? Then let's go to Sarah, Rob, or?
Thank you, President Klein, Commissioners. Just a reminder to everyone, the evening meeting tonight at Kepler Theater, and there will be a sign-up list. I do believe Tiffany, my secretary, and Krista, the county clerk, will be there as you enter the door to greet you for the sign-up list. We are expecting a fairly large turnout, so please do sign up in advance so we can be sure to get your questions if you'd like to ask questions in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, any comments? Attorney comments? Or Kirk, any from you?
On today.
County clerk?
I do. The Emergency Services Advisory Council wishes to reappoint Gary Farrell to serve as the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association representative on the Emergency Services Advisory Council. This would be Mr. Farrell's first full term, and they wish to have him serve from April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2022. Mr. Farrell has attended 6 out of 7 meetings since July of 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve Gary Farrell to the ESAC Board.
We have a first, is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any other staff reports? Seeing none, let's move forward to our presentation of a proclamation for Building Safety Month. Mr. Eichenberger, would you introduce the program and bring your staff up with you? And then Court, sure. Gentlemen, please introduce everyone. This
Good afternoon,
important
Commissioners. Rich Eichelberger, Director of Construction. I have with me Frank Quillen, who is the Chief Plans Examiner and also the Deputy Code Official. Terry Pfizer on the very end, who is our Senior Plans Examiner, Chief Building Inspector, and then Rebecca Gander, who's Chief of Permitting from Division of Plan Review and Permitting. We're here today to accept that proclamation on behalf of the county. This is a representation of the few folks who deal with the building more than anyone, but realistically, receiving this proclamation actually touches just about everyone in county government, from the commissioners who approve the building codes down through all the other different departments who in some way normally have some touch with this. So we're just happy to accept that.
All right, well, thank you. We have a proclamation. Court, would you like to join court over by the flags?
So the Commissioners, we have a proclamation for Building Safety Month, May 2019. Whereas Washington County continuing efforts to address the critical issues of safety, energy efficiency, water conservation, and sustainability in the built environment that affect our citizens, both in everyday life and in times of natural disaster, give us confidence that our structures are safe, sound, and whereas our confidence is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, laborers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians, dedicated members of the International Code of Council, develop and implement the highest quality codes to protect Americans in the building, where we live, learn, work, worship, and play. And whereas the international codes, the most widely adopted building safety, energy, and fire prevention codes in the nation, are used by most U.S. cities, counties, and states. These modern building codes also include safeguards to protect the public from natural disasters such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, and earthquakes. And whereas no code, no confidence, the theme of Building Safety Month 2019 encourages all Americans to raise awareness of the importance of building safety. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Washington County, Maryland, do hereby recognize Building Safety Month 2019. Washington County citizens are asked to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments and federal agency in protecting lives and property. So, thank you. There we go.
next year. I want to get you laughing about something.
God.
Folks, I'm going to go to citizens' participation. We're a couple minutes early. If there's any citizens, please come forward. If not, if I see someone walk in a few minutes, commissioners, I'll go back and redirect that offer out to everyone. So seeing no citizens to participate, contract award PUR 1419. Mr. Rick Curry, please come forward, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rick Curry, Director of Purchasing, Scott Hobbs, Todd Moser. Subject before you is requirements contract award PUR 1419, real property appraisal services. The recommended motion is to award the primary requirements contract to Bowers Appraisal Services LLP of Hagerstown, Maryland, who is the incumbent based on a responsible price proposal dated April 3rd, 2019, with the lowest sum total of $210,050. As permitted in the request for proposal, also to award a secondary requirements contract to Diversified Property Services Incorporated of Timonium, Maryland, based on this responsible price proposal dated March 31st. The next lowest sum total amount of $221,850 at the unit specified prices. There is no minimum or maximum number of hours. This is a requirements contract, will be utilized as needed. There is reimbursement for mileage. The proposal was advertised as we normally do, email and marketplace, in the local newspaper. We received 2 proposals, as you can see by the ARF. Also, this is a 1-year contract with 3 one-year approvals. We had a coordinating committee that's made up various members, as you can see listed in the ARF. Also, you have the bid tab of the other price proposals. Questions?
Commissioners, questions, comments?
I guess I do have a question here. On your total, or never mind. I was just looking at the total price columns and then just looking at how just the differences in the amounts that were proposed. So, but I guess in the bottom you look at the total of both columns.
Based on the total lump sum price.
Commissioners, are there any other comments, thoughts? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, is there a second? Second. I have a second. I have first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, 5-0. Thank you. Next, contract award PUR 1420. Welcome back.
Subject is requirements contract award PUR 1420 real property services. Recommended motion move to award the primary requirements contract to Diversified Property Services Incorporated of Timonium, Maryland, based on its responsible price proposal dated March 21st, who submitted the lowest sum amount of $127,704. Also as permitted in the RFP, a secondary contract to Johnson's, Mirren, Thomas of Hunt Valley, Maryland, who is the incumbent, they, based on their proposal dated April 2nd, 2019, who submitted a total sum price of $148,340 as specified in unit price. Again, this is a requirements contract with no guarantee, minimum and maximum number of hours to be worked. Also, it will be based on mileage that will be allowed up to 50 miles per day. The RFP was advertised on the county's website, State of Maryland's website. Number of people who download the document,
2 proposals were received. The coordinating committee evaluated the proposals, and the recommendation is before you. This is a 1-year contract with 3 one-year consecutive renewal periods. And also there's a bid tab attached for your review.
Just a quick question I have. Under the report and brief, as a result of the Division of Engineering Management's ongoing workload, it kind of signifies to me, have we done this before? Is this a new need that we have?
It's an ongoing services contract that we've had. One part with Todd being the one person in county government working for our office with all of our capital improvement projects as well as other departments. This is set up to assist as needed with the workload. He's done a wonderful job planning ahead the projects. It goes back to the 10-year CIP plan, so we move ahead. However, there's dozens of projects every year that have multiple property owners to deal with. So one of the main parts of the contract is any state or federal contracts that we have, we utilize this for relocation and to utilize those services, which are very important. And I'll let Todd explain a little more if you want to go into that.
The only thing I would add is my intention is to do all property acquisitions and negotiations in-house and not use this contract for that. Again, if there's any federal, local, or state dollars in an actual full acquisition where we have to relocate someone, then we have to adhere to federal guidelines, and that's when this contract would come into play.
Any more questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we're about 20 minutes behind. Is staff ready to do the next item on the agenda? All right, let's move forward with the Budget Transfer Division of Environmental Management.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here today requesting approval to transfer funds from one CIP account, which was the PO1 pump station, over to the pump station various locations CIP account. When we did the upgrades to PO1, we had excess funds left over that we didn't need because the bids come in lower than expected. So now we wish to transfer those funds over from the PO1 account into the pump station account so that we can do 2 additional pump stations here in the near future, the PO2 pump station and the Oak Ridge pump station. Both of them have their own unique problems. That's why we're looking to upgrade them. The PO2 pump station is located on Governor Lane Boulevard. It's now experiencing capacity issues because the Elmwood Farm comes in there, Yogi Bear comes in there, and Rehoboth comes there. And over the years, they've been developing and expanding, thus increasing the flow, so we need to upgrade the capacity of that station. The Oak Ridge pump station, we're looking to do improvements to that because our current wet well is small to the point during a high flow event, if we receive a high water alarm for pump failure, we have 5 minutes to respond before we actually surcharge the lines and potentially back up into residents' basements. So we're looking to do improvements at that station, increase the wet well capacity so that we have a better response time that we can get out there before damage is done to properties.
I have a quick question. So we're transferring that 510,000 over to where we need it, right?
Yes.
I guess the question I have, what would we have done if we wouldn't have had that 510,000 to, I mean, how long would it taken before it was critical? What would we have done?
Both stations are critical. Probably when I did the CIP, if I didn't know that money was available and thought that we potentially could transfer it, I would have had to increase the CIP account for the upcoming year by 510,000.
So this isn't something that you could have put on hold a while. This needed done, and you were just, this is a good opportunity to use money we didn't spend on the first one.
Yes.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Were these on the CIP prior to this, to the savings, just at a later date?
Yeah, the PO2, we completed it a year ago. We wrapped it up. The bids did come in less than expected. One of the local contractors got it. So we did have some excess funds left over in that line item we didn't spend. So we'd like to bring them over into the other pump station account so we can do these other two stations.
Well, that, the other two stations, were they in the CIP? Or are they?
They are currently, we have a line item called pump stations various upgrades. It doesn't designate any particular pump station. We evaluate our pump stations and determine a priority list internally of which ones need it. Some may need extensive upgrades, other may just need maybe a new pump purchased. So yes, the account has existed for several years, but we did have two separate, we do have the PO1 account and we do have the other account too.
I guess what I'm saying is, it sounds like you knew that these were a problem prior to this, but they weren't specifically in a capital improvement project?
They were in the various pump station location, yes.
Okay, and when was that going to be funded?
It currently has funds in it now, but due to the budget restraints, we weren't able to put additional funds in it to do these two stations, to have both of them. So that's why we're seeking to transfer the funds left over from PO1 over.
You asked about the bridge. Is that the one that on occasion releases odors? The one out of,
I don't believe that one really has any odor issues.
something out there in the area that we apply chemicals to every so often? 'Cause
We
our
do
calls-
apply enzymes inside the wet wells to help reduce odors, yes.
Just a question for clarification. You had referenced Yogi Bear Campsite and Elmwood Farms, and then we're also talking about the Oak Ridge Pump Station.
They don't go to the Oak Ridge, they go to PO2, those developments.
Okay, so these are two different locations.
Yes, it's two different pump stations we would like to improve. It's the PO2 station, which is located on Governor Lane Boulevard, and then the Oak Ridge Pump Station. They're two separate projects.
If I could just add one piece of information, the Oak Ridge Pump Station is our highest flowing pump station, and it's located right in the middle of a residential, it's right in the middle of a residential block, and actually the pump station looks just like a house.
Yes.
So it fits in. So when Mark says that we have a very limited time to get there, that's the honest to God truth. I mean, we've got just a small amount of time to get there, or else we're gonna have problems in the neighborhood. There have been problems in the neighborhood in the past, but because our guys have been so good, that we've been able to minimize the amount of damage that happens in the location. The last time that we had a problem was Superstorm Sandy, where the backup generator failed, and we just couldn't get there in time, and it caused significant damage to the neighborhood. So the two reasons: one is that it's the fact that it's so close in the neighborhood, and two, that it is our highest flowing station by far, which routinely exceeds 1 million gallons a day. We need to take care of that pump station. And when we do all of our pump stations, our whole list of pump stations, every month we track the flows on each one, and we prioritize, as Mark said, so we have this amount that's available that we can use where we need it, and it all depends on what that priority list of what's going on, where we believe is the biggest bang for our buck, and where the critical needs are. And these two stations are critical needs.
I guess what my concern is, is that it doesn't sound like this was an emergency. It sounds like this was something you knew was down the road.
Yes.
And it sounds like it needs improvement. But what you're talking about priorities in the capital improvement plan, is there something else that this $510,000 would have had priority? If we had the savings from over here, and I now have this savings, we set our priorities, what is that next priority list? Is it this? But from the way you described it, is this is extra now. And then that's where I'm trying to figure out, is this an emergency, or is this something that during our planning and when we prioritize stuff in the capital improvement plan, why wasn't this the next in line?
Short answer to the question is I&I has pushed it way up on the list, where the average flows were lower, and we're able to, we were able to kind of live with it for a while and be able to maybe address another issue that was more. Maybe there was another issue that was more pressing, but because of the flows, because of the I&I have been so high in the last 2 years, that this station has gone to the very top of the list. And it really is a critical need at this juncture. And again, all our decisions are made based on, all right, should I spend it here or should I spend it here? Exactly what you described. That's the only way we can do business in the new division of environmental management. We have to prioritize, we have to maximize the money that we spend, and we have to make sure that the decisions we make, to the best of our knowledge, are the ones that we believe are the best place to put our resources.
Just a follow-up question, unrelated to Commissioner Monschmidt's. PO number 2, the Governor Lane Boulevard station. To accommodate development within the drainage station, what development in particular in that area?
The Elmwood Farms development, Yogi Bear, and Rehoboth Church.
So it's all existing development.
Yogi is expanding, and so is Elmwood Farms. They are continuing to do additional phases. I think they're proposing to do 22 additional lots here this spring.
So we're increasing for the planned development at those 3 locations only.
We also looked at the ultimate build-out too, and this station will accommodate the ultimate build-out of all those developments and the vacant land that's currently in that area, because like Mr. Bowman's C-store, that would come to this facility too if he gets through the zoning process. And there's some other vacant land out there that has the potential to come into this once it's developed.
How does the church affect it? It'll be on that system too?
The church comes into their Rehoboth, yes. And they're currently, they did have the pavilion built, now they're actually building the sanctuary. And I know they got future plans for assisted living homes and other facilities out there, and all those flow numbers were included in the ultimate upgrade to PO2.
So basically, if this thing's not improved, it could cause a lot of problems. Would you go out on a limb and say that?
That's all of it.
We would probably have to limit development and
Yeah.
not allow development to occur because the pump station.
Is this the most critical of your pump stations right now?
This one's critical in Oak Ridge. They're both in stress.
So they're your top 2 critical.
Yes.
Anything close?
There's always other ones behind. We have a smaller one. PO3's having some issues too. We have ordered a new pump for that, but that's not in the dollar amount that this one is.
Does this money cover everything you need to cover it for?
According to the engineer's estimate, it's going to be very tight.
So you're not going to have any left over?
Now, if we get favorable bids, yes. If the bids come in high, we'll do the one first, and then we'll reevaluate after that.
Okay.
You'd mentioned C-store. What's a C-store?
That's what Bowman Development calls that project there at Lappin Road, a C-store. It's
Convenience.
Yeah, the project off of Lappin's 1 and Exit 1.
I think that's been defined as a truck stop.
I can only tell you what's on the site plan. They refer to it as a C-store.
I'm just referring to the judge.
Is that the, also the cornfield project? I thought it was called the cornfield.
It's called a C-store.
Now it's a
Cornfield.
C-store.
Yes, it's.
Mm.
It has multiple names.
Evidently.
Do you have the different dollar amount breakdowns for these 2 projects, since they're 2 separate and distinct projects?
The PO2 station is right around $720,000. The Oak Ridge station is right in $900.
And I'm sorry, in reference to the $510,000 breakdown.
It just goes into the generic count, and we'll use it for both.
So how much do you have in your project right now? What's the balance?
Just slightly over $1 million.
So that's where the other funding will come from.
Personally, if we move forward, I would like to move forward with 2 separate motions, since they are 2 separate projects. I think there's a little bit of uncertainty with the PO number 2 as to what development might take place out there. Obviously, there's some in the works, but there's some other questions. would we be able to entertain two separate motions?
Well, it's money, from the way I understand, it's going from one fund to the next, so I don't understand the two motions, since it's going to a fund.
Well, I guess they're two separate projects. They're being brought together, but they're two separate projects, is the way I see it.
Are you proposing funding one but not the other?
Well,
I wouldn't go along with that myself. I think it's about the C-storage you might have a problem with, and I can't penalize the rest of the people in that area because of somebody wants to
There'll
build
be
it.
hookup fees for everything.
yes, sir.
So it's not. we're not
Our
gonna
standard,
rate
the
and
current tap
development will
fees
yield
would apply.
property tax.
And what money does this fund come out of?
It's in the sewer fund.
Okay, so that's the enterprise fund.
Yes, it's a
Not
CIP.
general tax dollars or anything like
I
that.
think it's bond money in it, Sarah.
That's correct. Yes, it's in the sewer
Borrowed
fund.
bond
and
money,
it's-
right?
Yeah, and it's not general fund dollars, and it can only be spent on capital projects.
Commissioners, any more questions? We have a recommended motion. Is there approval for the a motion for the recommended approved motion?
I motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. Any more discussion?
I'll be voting no. PO number 2, that project, I need a bit more information on for me to fully understand that project, so.
Any other?
Yeah, and also for me, I'd like for projects to be broken down as well. The next time.
Well, each project, once we advertise it, we will be bringing them back for the formal bid process at a later date. So they will be brought back for official award once we go through the advertisement process.
Because the way I understand, this is just transferring the money from the one fund to the various funds. And then at that point, you're going to come back and say, hey, here's the bid proposals for each of the individual pumps.
Correct. We will do PO2 first, and we'll advertise it and award the contracts, which a dollar amount requires me to come back here. And then we will proceed with finishing up our design of Oak Ridge, and at that time, we'll reevaluate our funds and make sure we have enough, and then we'll advertise that one, and it will be brought back for formal award at a later date.
Okay, we have first and a second. Go ahead. Still more discussion. Go ahead.
Proposed expansion is needed to prevent backup of surcharge lines into residential basements. Okay.
Yeah, we're increasing the wet well
All
capacity.
we're doing is transferring this money, and there's still an opportunity or still a chance that it won't be used on either one of those projects, or once we transfer it, does this mean we're supporting a motion to guarantee both of those pump stations to move forward? You just said you had to bring the bids back in.
Yes. Right now, the money would be transferred into the various pump station CIP account. If in the interim, before we got to, let's say, Oak Ridge, catastrophe happened at one of other pump stations, and we would reprioritize, that other station may be number 1 now, Oak Ridge may be number 2, and at that time, we would change our priorities and seek to do the one that needs it the most.
In essence, this vote is solidifying the concept of the project. The future vote that's required is to approve
This vote is
the
to
specific bid.
transfer the funds from one CIP account line item to another CIP account line item.
Just another quick comment. I would like to see in the future if we could have a better description of what these projects are, the location of them. I mean, Oak Ridge is well-defined. PO number 2 isn't really well-defined without doing some digging as to exactly where in the county that project is. So if we could just have a bit more clarification on those numbers and acronyms that we get, that would be helpful.
Okay, Commissioners, first and a second. Call for a vote. All in favor of the recommended motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
3-2, motion passed. Thank you. Next up, Next Generation 911. Please come forward, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Bud Goodmanson, GIS Manager in the GIS Office, IT Department.
Jennifer Kinzer, GIS Coordinator, Department of Planning and Zoning.
David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
Thank you for entertaining this today. The commissioners were briefed on this topic back in November of 17. Just as an introduction, Next Generation 911 is a nationwide coordinated effort to move 911 to the next level of technology. This will include a locally managed infrastructure to route 911 calls, and as well as other features of this project. The state of Maryland is assisting in this effort across the state, including the Emergency Number System Board. We have Pete Lazich from the Sheriff's Office as a representative on that board at the current time. One of the main reasons why we're here is the address database will now be maintained in a GIS or a map format instead of a list. In the past, all the addresses in the 911 system were in a table-based format. So the street addresses, the actual addresses for each house will now be maintained on a map, and we need to refine the accuracy level of that for this purpose. The GIS for the county has, for several years, had a point for every address, and the streets are attributed with the address ranges, but we need to make sure that they're at the level of accuracy needed for 911 dispatch. The Planning Zoning Department maintains this right now, and we need to make corrections to some errors that are in that mapping to bring it up to this level, and we also want to include the towns in this. Some of the types of errors that are existing include the wrong street name, numbers out of sequence, the wrong odd and even, some private lanes may need named, and a couple names that are duplicated around the county. We're going to work with each fire company as we go throughout the county. They're going to assist us in providing support and a location for citizens to come and voice their concerns and explain to the public why this is necessary. We've also got PR on board now to help us get this out to the public, not only dealing with the changes, but with the recommendations for displaying your address correctly and how that will help in times of an emergency. We're looking at doing the Leitersburg Fire District first, kind of as a pilot program. That's going to happen next month, and we're using that as a pilot because it has the fewest numbers of errors in the county, and also there's no municipalities in that fire district. Then the remainder of the county will be done starting in 2020. So we need to maintain the consistency and avoid name duplications all throughout the county, and to do this, the county should be the sole addressing authority. We would like to get the towns to sign off on this through an MOU. We provided this information to the towns over a year ago to one of the mayor's meetings, the small towns, and we received generally a positive reception from the mayors. The city of Hagerstown will continue to do their own addressing. They've been doing a great job since day one, and we work closely with them so that there's no problem there. So we've drafted an MOU. The county attorney has reviewed it, and this would allow the Planning and Zoning Department to do the addressing as needed. We'll present this MOU to them and ask them to sign off on it, and then the Planning and Zoning staff will work with them to assign new addresses as they come in and approve road names with the assistance of 911 as they come in. The MOU uses our addressing ordinance, the current county addressing ordinance, as a model for house numbering and road naming. So with that, we ask the commissioners to approve the MOU so that we can present it to the towns. And I'll take any questions you may have.
I just have a real quick question. Under number 11, it says violation penalties. The town shall decide if they will adopt the violation and penalties section of the ordinance. And do we have a copy of that ordinance so that we could review that before signing an MOU that refers back to an ordinance?
We do. It's in the county ordinances?
It's on the county website, but we can circulate a link.
That was my question, is if this was any new or updated ordinance, since it's referring to the, the upgrade of Next Gen 911, if there's specific ordinances that this MOU is going to refer to, because of being a new program.
It doesn't specifically relate to that ordinance, but it's modeled on that ordinance. And the ordinance is not new, that was passed several years ago.
How do I know what the violations and penalties are?
That's what I wanted the ordinance for.
If I'm not mistaken, the ordinance says that the violations and penalties are set forth by the Board of County Commissioners, and it doesn't list a dollar amount, so we would have to come back to you with whatever given violation was occurring in the county and then ask for your guidance.
We haven't had to do that to this point. Most of the time, citizens are cooperative. Add to that the post office will not deliver their mail if they don't change their address or if they're out of compliance with the ordinance after a certain length of time. We give them plenty of time.
They have 6 months.
Commissioners, any more comments? Motion to approve?
That was just a quick staff comment, President Klein, and that is that while other county governments have done this with a consultant, I'd like to applaud the staff here for doing this internally on their own, saving tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes, we will be contacting the residents through a mailing, and they will respond to us to indicate that they received the letter. If they don't respond to us, we'll send them a certified letter, and so that may get into some money, but we're going to be asking the Emergency Number Systems Board for a grant to help cover that cost. But many other counties have just gone to a consultant and had them handle the whole thing, so we're doing it in-house.
So what happens if they don't answer the certified mail?
We'll go to Plan C.
I would be interested to see what the penalties are.
I would like to see the ordinance, especially if there's a penalty that is not said or not, clarified. I think that we should revisit that sooner than later, so that if somebody is not doing something, we're not just rushing at the end.
I'm not going to support, I don't think I would support a monetary penalty.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but it doesn't say anything. So does it mean that you go knocking on their door and say, hey, we need to change your address? Does it mean that we change their address and then they don't get mail? What does that mean? I'm not saying a monetary policy, but
It's good news if you don't get mail.
but yeah, I would like to see that ordinance, and if we need to get it updated, but I'm in support of the MOU.
Send each of you the link to the ordinance, county website.
Commissioners, comments, or someone ready to make a motion?
So are you asking that we wait to make a motion until you can review the?
No, I'm fine supporting the MOU because it sounds like, we're already in effect working this, but I do think we should be reviewing that ordinance sooner than later.
Okay, it's on the floor is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the MOU with towns to assign addresses.
First, is there a second?
I'll make a second.
First and a second, any further discussion?
Just a quick question off the wall. The map, why are those two districts in yellow and the rest of the county is in blue?
That's the Leitersburg Fire District, so they're the ones we're going to be doing the pilot program on first.
Understood.
Next month.
First and second, motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay, hearing none, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Housekeeping matter, Commissioners, would you like the ordinance to be brought forward formally, or would you like an opportunity to review before determining if you'd like that brought before you formally?
I just review it. I don't know.
Do both, it's easy.
Yeah, I think we could review it first and then if need.
Make comments,
Understand.
bring it in for a formal.
Bring it in, okay.
All right, Eastern Boulevard widening, Scott Hobbs and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Scott Hobbs, Director of Engineering. I'm here to recommend that the board accept a state funding contribution for the Eastern Boulevard improvements at Jefferson Boulevard for a not to exceed amount of $3.19 million for construction, utility, design costs, and sign the updated memorandum of understanding with Maryland Department of Transportation, State Highway Administration. The recommended motion includes approving the attached budget adjustment form also. On September 25th, 2018, the Board of County Commissioners accepted a state funding contribution of $1.99 million for the project as presented by county staff. Since that time, the cost estimate and scope of work has been updated, and accordingly, MDOT SHA is increasing that contribution amount. The county is receiving a funding contribution from MDOT SHA for work at Eastern Boulevard and Jefferson Boulevard. MDOT SHA has requested its upcoming intersection improvements at Jefferson Boulevard, Maryland 64 be part of the Eastern Boulevard Phase 1 project for project efficiencies and to reduce additional impacts to motorists. The previous ARF is attached for reference. The widening to be constructed in multiple phases. This is in relation to Phase 1 and the intersection at Jefferson Boulevard. This is a budgeted capital improvement plan project. The county will be reimbursed for a not to exceed amount of $3.19 million for the utility work, construction, and design costs as stated. If there's any questions?
So this is just for, I can't read the map. So is that Jefferson Boulevard there in the yellow? That's the security over there.
Jefferson Boulevard is the east-west road. That's at the bottom of the page, the aerial map provided. The red is Phase 1, and the intersection improvements will be the state's work to provide additional turn lanes on Jefferson Boulevard. So we're working in coordination with them. They're providing a cost-sharing agreement to provide the funding for their portion of the project. The county is managing the project with our Phase 1 work. That's shown in red on the aerial map.
Okay, this has nothing to do with the bridge over the Antietam or anything like that?
No, Eastern Boulevard. Back in September, we received, based on the cost estimates and work that we were working on with the state, we received that amount of cost sharing, and that's since been increased. So we're just bringing that back to have it updated and move forward with the project so they can continue the work with the real property work along Jefferson Boulevard, and we're finishing the design in coordination with State Highway Administration staff.
And I just have one other question. So what happens if the cost exceeds $3.19 million?
Then we would provide that cost involved with it. That being said, all our estimates indicate that it'll be under that amount. But like any bidding process, as we've talked about over the last few weeks, we'll have to see as that comes in, but that's based on our estimates.
Any other questions? Looking for a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Have a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a first and a second, any further discussion? Motion to approve, all say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, welcome back, Scott.
Yes, I'm back. And
Fuel
Sheriff
Center.
Mullendorf is here with me also. This is in regards to our recommendation to approve a budget adjustment in the amount of $65,000 for the fuel center improvements at the Sheriff's Office Detention Center. Improvements are required for the fuel center at the facility as part of the Maryland Department of the Environment Oil Control Program. This will include cathodic protection to underground piping and compatibility improvements to the computer system. These improvements will extend the service life of the facility. The MDE Oil Control Program regulates oil-related activities in the state, such as above-ground and underground storage facilities. Underground system deficiencies at this facility have been identified by their program. This again includes a budget transfer as provided from the detention center systemic projects BLDO 89 to a new project fuel center repairs, Sheriff's Office Detention Center EQP 066. So with that, if there's any questions, there's also an aerial map to where the site is, and this is in a cost savings measure. Originally in the CIP, we looked at a new site, and this will accommodate repairs and extend the service life of the facility with these repairs to the cathodic protection as required by MD, and then also the computer system needs to be upgraded, so that's part of that also.
Yeah, I think the relocation was over $500,000, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Any more comments? If not, looking for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the budget adjustment, and thank you for saving that.
A second.
First and second, any more comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
5-0, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we're a little early for the school board. Can Mr. DeVito do the solid waste supervisor
Sure.
plan in 20 minutes? Please come forward.
Good afternoon. This again is the solid waste consolidation that we had brought before you before, about 2 weeks ago, I believe. And at that time, there was some discussion and an amendment made. And what we've done is that we've resubmitted the ARF as written the first time, but as an alternative, provided what we thought was a encapsulation of pretty much what that amendment meant and how that amendment affected the bottom line. Our original ARF that we put in realized a savings of $71,426 per year. And again, that's to fill an open position that was created by a retirement, and we wanted to consolidate 2 positions and then bring in one of the way clerks and make them a supervisor. Again, we have identified that we need 3 supervisors to fulfill our permit requirements, to have a supervisor on site at all times. Every time that that gate is open, there has to be a supervisor available. Because of Dave's position, Dave has some obligations off-site. Tony's position as a recycling coordinator sometimes has to go out and meet with people to fulfill the requirements of his duties. So there are some times, and then on Saturdays, there are some times when both either Tony or Dave can't complete that function, that they're called to do other things. So that's where that 3rd supervisor comes in. It also helps with vacation, sick leave, and everything, to make that supervisory coverage provide the continuity that we need. So we proposed originally that we could do that with consolidating Tony's position and the Kathy's old position, and then consolidating a way clerk and making that a supervisor position. And we still believe that we can meet those needs in that configuration. There was some concern about the board, and that's where Wayne's alternative came in, and I hope that I got it accurate, and I tried to remember exactly how you put it. But the amendment meant that we could still do the consolidation with Tony's position. I think there wasn't any concern about that. Where it came in was the way clerk. And I believe what your amendment was, that we take one of the way clerks and we promote that person to a supervisor and then backfill her position with one of the part-time people and make them full-time.
Yeah, so just a little bit of clarity. The alternative doesn't necessarily capture everything I said, and that's fine. The reason I feel that it's important that the way clerk position be filled is because that's the primary focal point for customer service at the landfill. That's where most of the users see those employees every day. So just to ensure from a customer service aspect that the paying customers of our landfill are weighted on appropriately and timely, and I had a concern there. Also, the major crux of my amendment dealt with a retiring operator position that this year that is being planned not to be filled, and I wanted to ensure that would be filled.
To be accurate, we have not made any decisions at all on that position.
I wanted to go ahead and make that decision as part of this reorg.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get you. So if not the retiring position, put that aside for a second, just to make sure that we're clear, if we backfill the position the way clerk's position, taking a part-time person and moving them to a full-time position, then the savings goes from 71,426 to 15,905, or a difference of 55,521. Now, I added the second one to be sure that if we do that, and if that's what you vote to do and we do that, I want clarification on whether or not we're going to fill that part-time position too. So if we go back then and do that and then go back and say, now we want to fill the part-time position that we just made full-time, now those savings drops to 78,000 or 7,800, or a difference of 63,551. Wanted you to have the numbers so that you could clearly see what we're talking about and what the difference is in the savings, so that you could make whatever decision you feel
Quick question.
appropriate.
Are these savings or anything that's currently proposed already in the budget?
Some of these savings are court. So during the budget process, we were aware that there may be an elimination of a position. We weren't privy to the information on which position, so we did make a reduction in the salaries, wages, and benefits section for a position. It was one of the lower positions. So some of these savings are already captured in the proposed 2020 budget for current positions, but not anything for what you've been discussing, Commissioner Kiefer, on a future retirement. So
in essence, if we made a change, we would be actually having to increase the budget.
Yes, there would be an increase, and more general fund appropriation would be needed for the 2020 budget.
If all right, I would like to, and I apologize because this is like the third or fourth time you guys have been here. I would like to punt this, because if we're not voting, we have to know what our budget's going to be, and if we don't have a budget with increased revenue, we're going to need to be decreasing our expenses again. And I don't want to say, hey, we're going to make this change and then come back just the week after and say, nope, we've got to go do it the other way because we don't have the money.
Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Can we maybe split the baby and at least deal with Tony's position? Because I don't think the consolidation, and Tony goes from a grade 14 to a grade 15. And he's been acting to fill Kathy's position since. So if you decide that that's what you want to do, I would have certainly appreciate it if we could then at least deal with Tony's position separately, vote on that, and then we can come back with just what you guys are talking about, if that's
Already been compensated per policy for doing another person's?
Yes.
Or what percent is that? Or
I
is
believe
that
it's 10% temporary upgrade.
Right.
So as we voted last week, I like your plan. I'm glad you're saving us $71,000. I think that's an excellent idea, and thank you very much for that, because we all understand the way the budget is currently. But without voting on a budget, which we know that we have tonight, the hearing next week we're voting on, I would prefer to get that, and we could be right after we vote for the budget, so have the budget and then have you guys.
If the landfill truly operates as an enterprise fund, it's not really the general taxpayer dollars that should be going towards these positions. Is that an accurate assumption?
Except it's running at a $3 million deficit.
Well, that's sewer.
Sorry,
The landfill does get an appropriation from the general fund of $400,000 to $500,000 per year, and that appropriation was increased due to no increases in fees. So I think that's where, if there's a direct impact in the 2020 budget for solid waste, why it will affect general fund.
And when we vote on the budget next week, there's a possibility that we don't come to an agreement among all of the commissioners, so there's going to possibly be a lot of adjustments made anyhow.
Oh, and that's what I'm saying is what I don't want to do is say we're hiring somebody and then
Saving money, I understand we're not saving as much as we could possibly save, but we're still saving money.
Well, no, because what's in the budget currently is the savings of $71,000, and if we change it, then it's actually increasing the budget what's currently in there. So it wouldn't be.
I understand all that.
So that's what I'm saying is if we don't come to a budget, I don't want to make a vote for something and then have to come back and change it right afterwards because we didn't agree on a budget.
I'm okay to wait. It's to wait Okay, thank you for bringing it up for discussion. Thank you very much.
Can we take care of Tony or not?
I think if I understood President Klein's question correctly, as Tony is under the policy, he's, after 30 days, an employee's eligible for the 10% if they're performing additional duties of their supervisor.
Yes.
Okay.
And I apologize. I just don't want to make a change to have to change again.
It'll be an easy arf to write.
Okay, there we go. We're going to go through with the recommended motion. For clarity, Mr. DeVito, staff, what was the motion approved?
There wasn't a motion. It was to
wait.
Wait till
Gotcha.
after
Okay.
the.
And Tony will still be compensated at the 10% rate? Yes, sir. Thank you. That's what I wanted the clarity on. Okay. Jeff Pruitt, please come forward. We're early, but you're right on time. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jeff Pruitt, Chief Operating Officer, Washington County Public Schools, with David Brandenburg, Executive Director of Finance. Before you today for the third quarter FY19 budget adjustments. As we tell you each quarter, the annotated code requires local school systems to periodically reforecast their financial needs and make the necessary changes to their budgets. The changes presented in front of you today do cross categorical designations. They were consensually agreed to by the board's finance committee, the last meeting they had on April 30th, and then approved by the full Board of Education business meeting last week. And today we seek your approval of those quarterly adjustments. And we're happy to take any questions you have.
Commissioners, questions?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Any first and a seconds or any other discussion? Hearing none, motion to all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you,
gentlemen.
Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
I agree with
Director of Human Health and Human Services advertisement. Future alignment of function. Rob Slocum, sir.
Yes, sir. So currently, the Director of Health and Human Services is vacant. Ms. Payton has moved on to other opportunities. And I'm asking for two changes to be quite clear and straightforward in this. One is that the, included in the title, health currently be removed because according to many, and I can understand this, the health aspect is a bit misleading apparently. Perhaps people begin to think health department, so forth and so on, and return it to a more conventional naming system of simply human resources, HR. So that is the first request. And the second is, and you'll see both of these in the attached description that would track changes as proposed. The second is that the Director of Fitness and Recreation, the supervision of that department, be removed. Forthcoming will be Mr. Eshelman, Division of Public Works Director, who will be proposing a larger plan to actually bring parks and facilities, divide those, and have parks and recreation, which again is according to convention. Not to get too detailed in that, but the purpose of that is to better support the parks, activities in the parks, and included in one of the parks is certainly the golf course. We've talked about general fund. We've talked about taxpayer dollars supporting general fund at the golf course. We are trying to reinvigorate that golf course and have that general fund support be much less than it currently is. And this fits into that category. The staff in place, I believe, will do an excellent job if we move forward. But again, for simplicity's sake, this is simply for the Director of Health and Human Services position to be advertised with the name change to Human Resources, and not to include
Health.
not to include health or Director of Fitness and Recreation, correct?
A quick question on the duties, the original number 3, which was stricken entirely. Should that whole line have been taken out, or just the and fitness and recreation departments? Because the Director of Human Resources would still direct the operations of human resources.
Yes, that is correct, sir. I apologize. And late, I believe it was Thursday, I did receive some technical information that if you would accommodate me in knowledge and skills and abilities, our HR staff did present as far as certifications and so forth that should be included. If you'd afford me the ability to amend the knowledge, skills, and ability to include those appropriate certifications, I'd appreciate that very much. So,
Concurrences, I see none. Should there have been any concurrences from the golf course rec department or any other opinions on that?
yes, sir, I would like to address this very much so. I would like very much to bring you a full and complete plan with absolute concurrences. The difficulty is we have a vacant human resource or health and human service director. That will take some time to get advertised and get interviewed and fill the position. So I was trying to get this done first. I was trying to advertise it accurately and be forthright and transparent about it. So I do believe various folks, our Director of Public Works has already spoken, and I have spoken to a few of the individuals that would be affected by this. I believe they are, yes,
You're okay with it?
yes, yes.
I'm good with all that myself. So.
Yeah, I'm just saw their.
Is that a motion?
I have one quick question, and then I went and looked at a lot of the other counties, and one of the things, and I'm going to say 40 to 50% that I've seen is that the HR is actually under the legal. I've seen that, and I don't know, is there any efficiencies to that, or are you fine with the way this?
As it's presented, I'm fine with it. Certainly, if it could be changed, but I don't think we have any issues with it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because I was going and looking at that, and I didn't know if there was a reason people are switching or keeping the same, and I didn't know if we've looked at it since we're making changes. That was just something.
They're doing just what we're doing, trying to get it right.
Yeah, so that's just what I was wondering. So, but it's just a comment, so, but I guess I'll make the motion to approve the rename, the Health and Human Services.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
And this motion includes his comments and suggestions, is doing a little tweaking
The
in
ability
there.
to tweak the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and report that back to the commissioners.
And line item 3 will be corrected. It's not stricken in its entirety.
It will be, yes. And what I would plan to do with this is make those corrections and get this in final format and actually begin the advertisement process through HR.
If that could just, before you do that, if you could just email that out to the commissioners.
I will.
I have first and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Commissioners, next up is the Smithsburg request for assistant. It's scheduled at 3:20. We're about 34 minutes early. Commissioners, any suggestions? Would you want to move forward or wait till approximately 3:20 time for any other folks to arrive?
Let's ask Dave and what they want to do.
The last thing on the,
Ask and see who's here and who wants to be here.
yeah, I just don't know if anybody from the,
Ask them if they're expecting anybody else.
well, I don't know how
Ask Dave and
to handle that. They may have all your people here, Dave. Are you expecting any? You ready? All right, please come forward.
ask if they were expecting anybody.
I don't know how to, you know, if any other, are you expecting any other participants or spectators, I should say? That would be hard for you to. Okay. Is it okay with moving forward a little early or not? Please tell me.
I think we're a half hour early, and
I would like just.
We could at least split it and give them
15-minute
15 minutes.
recess, because we are, if someone walks in and we're in the end of the discussion, I think we'd be letting some,
So what are you saying, 3 o'clock?
yeah, let's take a 10, 15-minute recess, come back, and be on time. Thank you.
I know people call me, say they're showing up at
Well, I think you're.
You did have somebody call you?
You get an earth primer.
Give them in a minute. Everybody's on the phone conversing.
That's terrible. $75 is the fine.
What?
$75 is the fine for not putting the numbers up.
It's in there?
It's horrible. If I don't want to have the number, I don't want to have the number. I don't want to be, honestly, I don't want anyone to know where I'm at anymore.
I don't know how many people are trying to find you, Jerry, to be honest with no offense.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Commissioners, you okay starting about 10 minutes early? And if anyone would come in late, we'll offer our apologies. Smithsburg EMS request for assistance. Director Hayes, would you come forward? And whoever is to assist you. Thank you for accommodating our pause, but we were a little bit too early. So thank you for your understanding.
Yes, afternoon. Good afternoon again. David Hayes, Director of Emergency Services.
David Chisholm, Assistant Director of Emergency Medical Services.
Joni Gerber, President of Smithsburg EMS Board.
Todd Smith, Second Vice President, Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association.
So I'm going to let Director Chisholm work us through the ARF, and then we'll turn it over for discussion, and then we'll end this with a review of what our planned actions would be for Smithsburg's request.
Subject before us today is Smithsburg's EMS request for assistance. The recommendation that the Division of Emergency Services, the Office of Budget and Finance, Human Resources, and the County Administrator, along with the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association executive leadership, immediately begin working with Smithsburg EMS to further reduce expenses. These efforts will work to extend the existing Smithsburg EMS revenues until a long-term solution can be developed and implemented. The steps outlined above are necessary to meet the operational needs and ensure the continued and uninterrupted delivery of service to the town of Smithsburg and the surrounding communities. Report in brief. On Tuesday, May 7th, 2019, Washington County Emergency Services Director Hayes received a communication from Assistant Chief Ward Flieger of the Smithsburg EMS. This request expressed the need for the director to call him concerning an emergency Board of Directors meeting being held at that time. During the phone call, Director Hayes was informed by the director of Smithsburg that they needed immediate assistance from the county relative to revenues, expenses, and continuing service delivery. Discussion. During the May 7th phone conversation, Director Hayes advised the Board of Directors that a letter should be drafted detailing the information provided to the director and any additional information that has affected or contributed to the current situation. Fiscal impact currently is unknown. No concurrences at this time. No alternatives, and the attachment includes a letter from Smithsburg EMS.
So an overview of the situation in whole. What we quickly learned was Smithsburg had enough cash revenue to sustain their operations for the next 7 to 14 days, and that would have been from last Tuesday evening when I received the information. They'll be executing a payroll today that will significantly deplete those revenues, and they have several outstanding invoices for workers' comp, health insurance, and then there'll be a note payable on a vehicle that will further deplete and completely exhaust their revenues. In short, we have a plan now underway that we're working through, and we've established 2 goals. One is to, due to the call volume and geography of the county and the Smithsburg response area, the Division of Emergency Services will ensure that there is at least 1 staffed ALS transport unit in Smithsburg 24 hours per day, every day. And the second goal is to provide a planned, appropriately structured, and monitored path forward that is designed to return Smithsburg EMS to a stable and sustainable volunteer organization. To give you some statistics real quick, they ran 1,436 calls in 2018. Of those, 224 were BLS transports, 528 were ALS transports, and that's from their annual report that was released at the end of the year. They have approximately 70 square miles of response area. It includes the town of Smithsburg, Leitersburg, Mount Etna, Cascade, Penmar, Fort Ritchie, Ringgold, Cavetown, and Wolfsville, which is in Frederick County, and they provide measurable mutual aid responses both into Franklin and Frederick counties. So as we worked on a plan last Friday with our staff, we took several assumptions. One would be that the Smithsburg EMS solution must not have a negative impact on existing service delivery models and programs, which several of those, or one of those, include staffing of fire stations. Another one is the alteration of the existing staffing model in any area of the county. Likewise, we realized that Smithsburg EMS's volunteer base was not able to have a meaningful effect or impact on the staffing of a Smithsburg transport unit. Also, that their current financial situation would require immediate evaluation of their expenses and potential revenue generating actions such as liquidation of apparatus not immediately necessary to primary transport service delivery, a change of the schedule to the 24/48 work cycle, which is 2,496 working hours per year, staffing reductions up to 30%, and provider salary review analysis and adjustments where needed. We would also put forth that a full financial audit be authorized and executed, and then we'd also instruct that a full review of billing practices be completed to determine what it looks to be a decrease in their billable returns. So our plan of action to accomplish that we would place them through your authority on a probationary period and under full county review with all the below stipulations remaining in place for a minimum of 36 months or until such time any loan is repaid in full, and it's the greater of the two. We would provide financial support for through a fully secured loan to Smithsburg EMS that would enable them to continue to pay staff and operating expenses. The exact amount of such loan would be determined after a reset of staffing, wages, operating expenses, and downsizing of the apparatus fleet. Deferred repayment of the loan could be considered if necessary, and that is to be determined. Smithsburg would agree through MOU or contract to stipulations that would include but are not limited to changes to staffing levels, schedules, hourly rates, and reductions in equipment and/or apparatus inventory. This action will further reduce the county's financial impact needs by reducing the amount of operating cash that's needed after a balanced budget is produced. This is the same stipulation that was placed upon the Community Volunteer Fire Company when they were placed back in service on October 29, 2016. Smithsburg EMS would agree to full financial, administrative, and operational oversight by the Division of Emergency Services. That would allow us to modify or change any decision that was deemed not productive to the sustaining of emergency medical services. We would also employ the third-party review and accounting procedures when available in the current and upcoming budget. The county would have the authority in real time to review and modify management decisions that are not realistic, financially feasible, or simply do not add direct value into rebuilding financial stability for Smithsburg EMS. Smithsburg EMS would immediately liquidate all assets that are non-essential to providing primary ALS transport services. And again, this would further reduce the fiscal impact to the county. The Division of Emergency Services, in consultation with Smithsburg, will determine which assets to be liquidated. The remaining SIMS assets, or Smithsburg EMS, will be submitted in their entirety as collateral in the case of loan default, bankruptcy, or dissolution of the corporation. Smithsburg EMS will immediately convert its work schedule to the 24/48-hour work schedule with a Kelly Day. They'll maintain 7 of their existing full-time staff. It's proposed, at least at this juncture, 3 BLS, 4 ALS. That would allow the maintenance of the 24/48 schedule. And attempts will be made to facilitate placement of any surplus staff into one or several of the other EMS companies, many of which have current full-time vacancies. And then Smithsburg EMS will maintain the part-time staff and hire additional staff if needed to help fill vacancies created by scheduled and unscheduled leave by the full-time staff. And we believe this represents the best path forward for several reasons, one of them being that our intent is not to dissolve a volunteer EMS company, but to help them rebuild, restructure themselves, and eventually bring them back and let them fly on their own again. That's going to take time. It's going to take a loan and cash investment from the county, and it's the best solution that we believe we can manage what's ultimately we're going to be part of the management structure of whatever's approved going forward. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Gerber, who's the president, and then further down to the association. The only 2 things I want to add before that is we have met with the Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association's executive leadership, and they're in agreement that this is the best path going forward. And likewise, last evening we met with Smithsburg's Board of Directors, and again, we have concurrence for them that this is a fair and equitable process to move them forward.
Can I ask a quick question here real quick? Sure. What are you equipped to to supervise and to take over and not take over, but to assist and oversee Smithsburg.
Yeah, we believe we can do that job well.
You're convinced you all can do that?
Yes. I wouldn't be offering if I didn't think we could.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
What's the, I know you said you don't, the loans to be determined, but what's an approximate range? Are we looking at 100 to 150,000? Are we looking 50 to 75?
The first number that came in a quick review, and we haven't spoken about that directly, is probably $50,000 to $100,000. It could be somewhat north of that. They have about $11,000 vehicle loan that it would be beneficial to roll into this loan so that it's one payment because of the volume or the dollar figure on that loan monthly. But I'm thinking it's somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000.
And if you turned it back, if it's, say you say 36 months or whatever it takes to pay back that loan to the county, so when you determine you could turn it back over to Smithsburg or let them have control, you would require, I would hope, there's going to be an audit, but you're going to require X amount of dollars. You just want to turn it back because they paid us back.
That's correct.
And then we'd be back in the same position.
Yeah, so the way the language is in the Community Volunteer Fire Company agreement, that the 36-month probation could be extended at the sole discretion of the Board of County Commissioners. So we'd be giving you periodic updates throughout the time frame on the health and wellness of the company, along with the Smithsburg leadership, and then there would be some type of consensus by this board that the probationary period actually ends.
Thank you. Rob, you going to say?
Yeah, I wanted to provide, first of all, I need to say that Dave has done a spectacular job of handling this situation from our conversation last Tuesday evening after the Hancock meeting all the way up through now, working with both volunteers. I see Bob Moncrief is here. And I'm sorry, I failed to get your name.
Todd Smith.
Yes, Nick.
Joni Gerber.
Joni, I'm sorry.
That's
I think
okay.
Joni's worked with your board too throughout this entire process. So in the last 7 days, a lot's happened, and Mr. Chisholm as well. There are some numbers here which I needed, which may help you understand this situation. Balance of 40,000, pay is 27,000 every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. Workers' comp is due, which is a necessary item, 8,000. Health insurance, 2,000 coming up. Payment, a vehicle payment of 3,000. Averaging, there is no true average yet. I don't believe we have.
Healthcare is actually about 4,000.
4,000.
Yes.
So all necessary expenditures that must be made to try to give quantity to the situation. What we saw is sometimes losing as much as $40,000 per month. So there has to be some significant changes to what's happening without changing the level of service. I think that's what each commissioner, when I contacted you, that was your first and foremost concern. So I would caution to putting a number to that right now until we know exactly how all those payments are going to be made and not put any health or workers' comp or pay at risk, certainly. But we did also see, for running a crew, just to quantify this, for running a crew, it was taking Smithsburg about 50 to 60% more in overhead than some of the other companies. That's not meant as a criticism. It's only meant to say that we do believe this can function if we adopt some of the principles that other companies are using. So this can work, to answer the question. But the costs have to go down. And the other part of that, Dave, I'm sorry, I had to step out to get all my notes. But the other part of that is that CRS you have spoken with them. I don't know if I missed that or.
Yes, one of the components of this that was suggested is to bring the billing, the practical application of the billing back into the county and ask Community Rescue Service to do that billing for Smithsburg EMS, which in the current stuff that we've been working for the larger EMS picture, we're talking about a 6% rate on that billing. So that alone would produce a 3% savings in and of itself. But the big win in this, I think, is even more importantly, is it's home. We can touch it, we can feel it, we can drive over to Eastern Boulevard and have one-on-one discussions with a group to make sure that we're looking and seeing an absolute picture here to bring this. We do see a change in their net billable returns this year. I don't think they have an answer to that yet, but it is less than last year, and it looks like it's on pace, if it carries the same monthly average, to be about $100,000 shortfall of where their projected EMS billing was. So there's questions that need to be asked there, and hopefully answers that can explain some, if not all of that. And I don't have that. It's only 6 days old.
I have just one more question. I'll let you move on to your other speakers. For my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're gonna turn this around. We're gonna put some money into it. We're gonna have some collateral. It sounds like if that's the agreement, we're gonna have equipment collateral on our money. I guess the question is, I don't want to get into the depths of why it happened at this point. It happened. I guess I want to know more of how we can fix it with that quick of a loss. And I don't even want to get in that conversation. What I want to know is, this will help me a lot. How much did Smithsburg spend in 2018 compared to 2,500 companies? That would help me think where any kind of pay cutting could take place, whether it be fleet or personnel or.
So let me give you, I think, probably the simplest analogy. And these are each company's numbers direct. They're not numbers that we have.
You didn't investigate what was given to you.
We gave them with a direct request for the specific information. Smithsburg reports they spent $796,000 on staffing in 2018, respectively. And I'm going to go down through a couple companies
Just
here.
a couple of them, yeah.
Boonesboro EMS 494, Hancock EMS 502, 49 463. Company 26, 705, but understand they have 1.5 units in service. Company 19, 549,000, and Williamsport EMS, 617,000, and they do staff part of a second unit with that.
Now, according to calls, they've made over 1,400 calls, but it sounds like to me there's room there it sounds like to me that's a pretty big discrepancy from what I just heard.
Right.
What was Smithsburg's number again?
796,000. Now remember, they work a different schedule. They work the 24/72 schedule, which takes 25% more staff.
I got you.
So some of that is going to be directly equated to that. And they made that adjustment trying to take care of their people. They just didn't realize, in my opinion, the magnitude that would impact their budget.
And I see in your proposal, 2448 would be the proposal that would save money.
And that's the schedule that, certainly with the firefighters that are in the SAFER grant, and our current staff will be switching to sometime later this year. And if there's an EMS solution that's more global that comes forward, they will be moving to that schedule as well. So we can actually set the front side of this thing and get some of those things in place. As our proposal is not to switch ownership of their people.
I understand that. I was just seeing, in my mind, if there's room there to bring this back fairly quickly. And it looks like from those figures you just gave me, there's room there to do some things.
Right.
Okay, I'm happy. Thank you.
Yeah. So based on this, some of the statistics that you've just provided, we're going to be providing them possibly, maybe more, 50 to 100,000, and that will just take care of the remaining part of this year.
Yeah, that's just, they don't have any operating cash. So in every week they have more bills that are coming in. So that's just to give them an operating cash fund to pay bills. But the expectation is we're going to level expenses versus revenues, so that pot of money would be there as just operating cash. And then we actually are going to reduce, our plan would be to reduce expenses lower than revenues so that they could begin to replenish their own cash reserves. And then the deferred payment to that loan would be instituted through a time to where they could start making a loan repayment back to the commissioners. So.
Because based on the numbers that you just provided, by going from the 2472 to, I think you said 2448, 25% staffing, that's $200,000 savings.
I would say that's close. Yeah. If you figure taking 3 people out at paramedic wages or somewhere close to that with benefits, you're north of 150 anyhow. So
it doesn't sound like it's a constant influx of money. It sounds like that you can get it under control over the next year or so.
Right. And the bottom line with this, commissioners, right now this is a money problem and a money management problem. They have people. So, I know there's been conversation about moving people to other departments and saying, I do not believe that provides a viable path forward. We still have to deal with the money management side of this coin. And I think our best opportunity to be successful at that and actually instill with them the way forward and let them see it goes forward is to keep them intact as long as we have people. And now, if we don't have people, that may change this conversation down the road. And again, there are 10 people out there probably watching this that are hearing this conversation that are probably pretty nervous about what's coming forward. But our goal is to bring them forward and make sure, to the extent possible, we can take care of them. That doesn't mean everybody can be retained, but the more important message is that Smithsburg and the surrounding communities have continued emergency medical services 24 hours a day, and that's the goal.
Who's going to be, I guess, the decision maker of the ALS and BLS that's staying at Smithsburg, and the other ones that will have the opportunities to go to the other positions throughout the county?
Our plan would be to have that discussion with Smithsburg's leadership for input, but I would say at the end, we're going to have to be in concurrence with who stays and who goes if we're going to get the full financial oversight and responsibility to make sure that dots get put at the end of the period, at the end of the sentence, periods.
Director Hayes, to what extent has our ESAC committee been involved in these conversations?
None at this point. There hasn't been a meeting.
Forward?
Yeah, I've apprised Chairman Poole, and he has apprised Co-Chair Hopkins of the situation and what we're going to do here today, but there's been no ESAC meeting. This is only 6 days old. Go ahead.
I did want to say that on our own, we initiated the help of Smith, Elliott & Kearns to help get us in standing with an accounting firm that has a good reputation in our area to start accounting practices and accountability on our own of a good check and balance system, so that we wouldn't be in a position again where internally we could look at ourselves and see where we made mistakes. And I submitted for your review and to Director Hayes what they had recommended to us, so that we weren't in a position again internally. We wanted to take a look at ourselves, and we wanted to be as transparent as possible with Director Hayes and with you all. And I did tell Smith, Elliott & Kearns if it was them. If it's not, that's okay. But I told them to be prepared that an audit would be coming, because we want to look internally and make sure that we are doing everything possible to correct the issues that we're having. We don't want to be in this position again. And if that's the accounting firm that's recommended from you all or from Director Hayes, wherever it comes from, that's fine with us. But we saw that things were not going the right way, and we want to correct things. And I've reassured our staff that we want to make things right by them. We've been trying to follow the MOUs recommended by the county. And I also want to say that when you're working through a volunteer system, and there's not really been a lot of direction for the chiefs and the volunteer people that are trying to pick workers' comp insurance, healthcare insurance. It's not like within a company where you have people that are trained to pick out insurances and do everything the right way. So some things fall through the traps, or you don't have as much support. So things may not be the way you want them to be, but the intention is always good. Smithsburg has very good providers. The community likes our company a lot. They're very well respected. And I think there just hasn't been some of the things in place that could be there, because there's not the setup in place that is typically there with companies that pick out workers' comp insurance, healthcare insurance, and a lot of things are being done with volunteers or on the side. So things get more expensive than maybe they should be, because the work's getting done on the sideline and not the way it should be done. But that's just, it's like a perfect storm. And I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain all the different things that go into it. So these are some of the things we're looking at, just so you know, get the full picture of some of the problems that involve. The intentions are good, but this all rolls up into a big ball and makes a mess. But it's with the intent to take good care of the people who are taking care of our people.
One thing I didn't cover with the audit, our intent would be that that becomes part of the loan as well. That is not something that we would pay for. And really the way we structured this entire conversation is, and I mean this, and they know what I mean by this, this was brought about by them. The taxpayer in general is not going to be held responsible for that to the extent we can prevent that. That's why everything is structured as a loan. It's being secured with everything they own. So again, if it doesn't work out, which I believe it will, we have the assets and we can continue to provide EMS if that's the direction that we do. But you know, I'm sure this doesn't feel good to them, but unfortunately times like this are difficult and they require difficult decisions, and that's where we are.
And we've agreed with everything with Director Hayes. We've not argued about anything, and I think Director Hayes will say we've been very transparent and, and in agreement with everything he's suggested. And anything he's asked for, we've given him.
You said the loan would be approximately 3 years, possibly with the,
Commissioner, I'm not sure where to go on that yet because we just haven't been able to make sure that we can see everything. And I don't want to make a statement and lead you down a road that I could be totally off base on, but
and you're not going to charge them an interest rate. It's going to be interest free.
that would be my recommendation to this group, but that's certainly your decision. And that's the terms we extended to Community Fire Company when we did that. Theirs was a 10-year loan. I don't think this is going to be anywhere near that kind of money. And I don't think we're going to need to be at a 10-year term. But again, I'd like to reserve that conversation till we can work with county leadership and budget and finance to see what the value of this loan needs to be, and that we're right about it when we put a conversation on the floor for you to consider.
And I thought I heard you mention you're going to defer the first payment until everything the dust settles.
Yes. And actually, it would be a deferral period based upon their financial ability to get to a position when they could start repaying the loan. So
I have a couple comments or questions combined. First, Smithsburg EMS, hold your head high. You're not here for bad service. You're here because of money problems. So you did your service to your community. This is a money problem that we can solve. So I don't want any of you leaving here thinking you did harm or left the people of your community down. We're not here about bad service or bad calls. Is that correct? We're here about a money problem. We can solve that. Second, safety of that community is guaranteed by what we're doing here today. No lack of service, no delayed call, not one short. Correct?
That's correct.
All right. What I hear, we're going to do an audit, and it's going to come out of the loan, and it's going to go back. And I don't think anyone's suggesting any improper activities other than management problems. But this audit will be in depth, going back several years, looking at history to give us a pathway to correct money mistakes. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Next, this building is going to be turned over to CRS. Is that what I'm
right.
hearing?
And we've had a discussion, at least initial conversations. They're willing to consider.
There'll be
that.
a contract with them on details for that. Correct? Will that have to be approved by the commissioners, or how will that?
That contract can be
their board?
executed through Smithsburg EMS directly, under our direction as part of the requirement. But
Be contingent to the loan.
Yep, that's right.
The other thing, there's certain properties that are going to be disposed of that are considered excess or not needed with the current money situation.
Equipment, yes.
All right. The employees will not be county employees at this time. They'll still be part of
Smithsburg
EMS.
Mm-hmm.
My next question, who's next? Is there another company out there with financial failings or a situation that we may need to address?
At this point, who knows? Any apartment is just like a disaster away from it, an accident and a big workman's comp claim or totaling a vehicle or, there's no way to predict that. But at this point, I don't think we're seeing anything like that at this point. We're keeping an eye on everybody.
Okay, my last statement would be that all these things we discussed will be a contract MOU that the commissioners review and sign to approve, so we know how things are gonna work.
And I'm not sure I'm speaking correctly, but Rob spoke to me earlier. We may try to have that in before to you as early as next week. So, because again, we don't have time. We have to launch this about like a fighter jet off of an aircraft carrier, because they're out of money. They have people that are working today that they don't have money to pay.
We need an answer today to how to move forward.
Have to have an answer. And really, I'm going to ask you, I hope I'm not overstepping, where we almost need the authority to execute up to a $50,000 loan today, because they're going to need operating cash here in probably about a week. And then with the understanding that that could be adjusted if needed to a higher number. And again, I say up to, we're not just going to cut a $50,000 check to them. We didn't do that with Community Volunteer Fire Company as well. We would exercise those funds almost as needed and when needed. So again, until we get into a better handle of the financial stuff with Sarah's office and Rob's office, you know, we're going to pay what needs to be paid and how it needs to be paid. So we'll
When do you
control that.
expect to come back with a more definitive dollar amount timeline?
I
Or
don't,
an
you
agreement
don't,
listing all these other,
yeah, I think you don't have a meeting after next week, right, for a week? Is that correct? Okay, so,
first, and then.
I mean, I would hope we'd be able to give you an update, maybe not clean down to every nickel and penny, but at your meeting, which would be, I guess, the end of May or 1st of June.
That's right. So,
Sorry.
that's okay. So I think we have to do two things pretty quickly, is because CRS does have the expertise at reviewing billing and they know very similar patterns and so forth, we need to determine how we can get revenue up, if it can even be brought up through additional billing. So that's one thing. And then expenses down. Somehow we have to get expenses down. Again, not to lose sight of the number, $796,000 to run versus some other companies that are under $500,000. That's a significant difference. So we have to get you to a place where you're spending money at a rate where you can actually pay it back fairly quickly, within years, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we have to reach out to CRS on the revenue side, and then we have to reach out to the liabilities and payments that are necessary. Again, workers' comp, health insurance, payroll, all that stuff has to be met.
Absolutely.
And then largely, I think that can get defined somewhat well during the next week and bring in maybe a sample document for what we can do. We've already had a meeting this Monday about the fair play document as a template. And a lot of it, that'll have to change. We can bring that before you, probably with some type of dollar value next week. From that, I think we're going to have to get into further refinement 2 weeks from then and say, here's the final details. But I would ask that authorization, unless you feel it's absolutely necessary today, we try to get that authorization next week.
Yep, up to meet it.
For the next meeting, yes.
And if, to add on to that, I'd be comfortable to be able to do the loan, that as long as we had everything backed it before, because I don't know how long it's going to take you to get the full agreement up and running, and I want to make sure you guys have the money for the next payroll, but as long as we had all that collateral, that'd be the first step, so that if, there's changes in the document that, I want to make sure that we have got a collateralized loan, step one, to get you the money, because if it takes 2 weeks, payroll's 2 weeks away,
Right.
so we need to make sure you have the money before that.
Yeah, and for me, I think the collateral document's pretty easy because we've got that template already, and I don't think that has to change much from communities other than what it is, the details of that. But the one thing, we've got up to 10 people out there right now that need to know that they're going to get a paycheck in 2 weeks. They're coming to work right now not knowing that. And I think, to me, Rob, the execution of a loan today lets them know that we're going to make this work for hours that are worked. And obviously, we need to reset expenses almost immediately, and we will begin that as early as tomorrow. But we can defer to whatever the commissioners' wish are, but I would like to have the loan
What's
today.
What's the biweekly payroll?
27 at their current expenses, that's correct?
Yes, around 27,000.
It's what I'm hearing.
I would personally agree to, and I agree with you, Dave, to go ahead and make sure we get some funding in place, because, this is critical. 1,400 calls. I know you can cover it. But, you know, failure on calls and to the citizens, you know, I'm all for, I sort of like the proposal. I sit on the ESAC, and Commissioner Kiefer asked about it. I just counted 10 of us, I don't know who's voting half the time and who's not, but 10 of us in this room that are on that ESAC. It's amazing to me how good of a job all the companies do when we hear so much disarray. That's part that amazes me. You never hear complaints. They're there. But I think this is, like Commissioner Klein said, has been it's a money issue. And I don't want to see people working for free. I wouldn't work for free. They can go somewhere else. I think we show our confidence and try to shore it up a little bit, and hopefully you can do what you say you can do and bring it back. And I see room somewhere where, with all that over, what Rob just said, 796. So I would be on board with your proposal and doing something pretty quick. I don't know, I'm just one vote, so.
Would you be, would you be all right if we did this at 2 steps alone? So one, we gave the assurance of, I'll say, just $30,000 right now, as long as we had the collateralized loan, and then we get legal working on the full loan and full deal that you have, and then we can, that second part is the up to, so that we can get the money there so that we know the payroll's there in 2 weeks?
Right, yeah, and they have income still coming in, so it's not as if their income stream has been cut off. So even a $30,000 loan is certainly going to ensure that payroll moves forward in 2 weeks from today. So as an example, there are some months that they've lost upwards of $40,000 or more. Other months they've had a net income, and that's normally when the big checks come in. But when I went back and pulled from July 1st, 2018 to March 31, it looks like they're losing an average of $11,000 a month. So if we just pay that note off, that's $3,000 a month. Now they're only losing $8,000 a month. So we can close that delta real quick as a short step to make even $30,000 carry them a little longer until we can get some of these things finalized and really hone in on exactly what that loan value needs to be. So there's some quick steps there that we can exercise to deal with that.
So how much are you looking for today to be able to move forward with the next payroll or two?
I'm okay with Commissioner Meinl-Smith's $30,000. Again, what I'm looking for is really the operating cash they're going to need to move through the next 2 weeks, and then again to send a message to their staff that we're aggressively working on this and we're committed.
$1 billion will be coming in at the same time.
I think we got to show support.
And for me, the collateral's important, but it's not important for this first loan. As she stated, they've been very cooperative. They know what's needed for their community. So I don't need the collateral to secure the $30,000 loan at this time, but you all can move forward with how you're going to provide that information.
Seems like 2 or 3 in support of that, Commissioner Kiefer. I would join in on that recommendation. So are you looking for a motion or a consensus? A motion?
Motion, I would think, a vote.
Someone want to make the motion that includes the $30,000?
I'll make the motion that we do this in a 2-step process, $30,000 immediate loan. I personally would want it collateralized, and then continue, and then a second loan with the said agreements that you guys went through. Whatever, I don't want to go through all the report, but the CRS billing, the third-party accounting procedures, the going to a 24/48 schedule.
I would second that motion, and I would not be too much worried about collateral on the first installment, but come another installment, I would probably be looking for that.
Okay, we have a first and a second discussion. Court, do you insist upon collateralized being in your motion or not?
I am. I think it's an easy document to write saying, hey, we have it. It secures the county's interest, and then we're working on a second agreement that's going to be fully collateralized anyway. So I don't see why there's
Is there a particular item you're looking at for collateral? Is it a piece of equipment?
Exactly. They've got how many fire trucks, ambulances there that are worth more than $30,000.
Could you amend that to your second installment?
Well, I mean, it's going to be part of the second one. We've already said it's going to be part of the second one. So why don't you take an easy document that's going to be part of the second one?
But they want money today.
How long would it, how fast you need this money to make payroll? What day?
So they have payroll for today, that's correct, right?
We made payroll for today. We do not have it for
We got
next.
2 weeks, okay.
Correct, for 2 weeks.
I thought it was today.
If we able to accommodate a collateralization in 2 weeks for the 30,000.
In 2 weeks, yeah.
Oh, I
If you
thought it
can
was,
do it within 2 weeks, would you accommodate court's motion with the collateralization?
Yeah, I'm fine. Like I said, I don't need it.
Okay.
yeah, I thought it was,
We're still in discussion, we're still in
Yeah,
discussion.
I'm okay with, I want you to have the money to be able to.
yeah, I thought the payroll was today, so,
Okay. I
no,
have a
so I'm
first and a
okay with it,
second.
yeah.
30,000 gonna be collateralized within 2 weeks, done before the next payroll period.
And then do we think we could have the final loan amount, or doesn't have to be an amount, but the final loan contract within 2 weeks so that they know by the time the next payroll is done, we have everything finalized?
Yeah, I'd rather just do one if we can do it.
Would you be able to get one done?
We should be able to.
All right, then
Yeah,
you
I'm
wanna
gonna
amend
need
your motion
information.
Yeah, we just have to get to a dollar figure. Really, I think Kirk's saying from the material side of documents, he can prepare them and have them ready. If we can identify those costs and make sure that, you know, Rob and Sarah agree that we're
apologize.
good.
I thought it was gonna take you longer time, but then I'll make if that's all right, can I withdraw that motion?
Motion, okay.
Is that all right? Then I'll make a motion to loan Smithsburg EMS up to $100,000 with a contract that's going to change the scheduling from a 24 to 48-hour work week, have a full financial audit, a review of billing practices, determine the decrease in returns, that Smithsburg EMS staffing shall be reporting to DES staff. And I think that's it.
Are we forgetting anything?
I think you got it.
All right, there's a motion by
He
Court.
went right down
I
my
need a
sheet.
second.
Did I
You went right down my sheet, so yeah,
Yeah,
you're
okay.
good. Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second with discussion on, you're just reading right off the sheet, the whole
Yeah,
proposal?
Yeah.
I have first and a second, commissioners.
So this motion takes care of any future discussion? Is that what we're saying?
Well, under the county attorney, he said that he would rather do this all in one so that they could get the contract, get everything in place, get the money that they need, and then let Department of Emergency Services move on with this plan.
I'm certainly okay with the $30,000 to get them what they need immediately. I would like to hear what our ESAC group has to say. I don't think they've been consulted yet, and that they are our citizen advisory group on this, and they haven't yet had an opportunity. I don't want to do anything that would disrupt one payroll, one day, for your employees. I mean, it's important Smithsburg gets the EMS coverage that they need. I think that just takes it.
When's the next ESAC meeting?
First Thursday in
Have you talked, they're here, have you talked to them and advised them, and will they
yeah,
be
the chairs-
included?
The chairs back. The
There's-
chairs are back here.
There are a bunch of them, here's 10 of them here.
Yeah, personally, I'd just like to take this one step at a time, continue with the $30,000. Again, I would accept the collateral or the collateralization. I don't need it at this time. I just want to make sure you get money to get you 2 weeks, and then possibly next week we could have a more informed discussion and be prepared to move forward with the recommended amount.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a first and a second, so I'm gonna have to call that.
I understand, it's just discussion.
Okay, I think that was part of the discussion.
But
Okay,
Commissioner Klein, for the staff that are listening, we are going to take care of those people, that they're going to have pay and they'll be okay. Okay,
so we
thank
have
you.
a first and a second
Yeah,
with the
and this
motion
is
the court read.
This is for the entire amount. I guess the reason why I'm looking at the entire amount is if we're, instead of doing a loan now and then giving DES at a later point, giving DES the ability to come in and help change the management, let's give them that ability to do that day one. Well, not in the first one was just a collateralized loan. That's what this is giving them the ability to do it. And so otherwise it's giving them a $30,000 loan, and then next week we're giving them the ability to come in and change it. I'm trying to say, hey, this was their idea, let's give them the ability to come in and change it.
As to how we can move forward, they may need more than 100,000.
Well, and yes, but this is giving them, this is DES and Smithsburg Work saying these are what we need to do to change the management, and I'm trying to say, let's start that today instead of let's start that next week.
Yeah, so if I could enter in just a brief conversation, what we do need is two things today. We're gonna need money, which is the motion about 30 or 100, but we need the ability to move. We have to move these expenses and realign this company. And while I believe they're willing to do that, we should have executed, in my opinion, something here today that says you have to do this or we're not going to give you the money, because there are requirements of that money. So Commissioner, where you're at is partly what we need to be for sure. The money value, maybe you don't need to be at 100 if they're not comfortable with that, but definitely the items that we've talked about, we need that today.
That's what I was trying to do, is get in the change of management and send up to 100, and I would defer to you to take it in chunks.
Right.
All right, first and a second on the floor.
I still got discussion.
Discussion? Very well.
Yeah. So I'm a little confused here. So
I'm totally confused.
Kirk, it seems like it started with what you said. Is there a way? I mean, I'm fine with the proposal, but what happens if the 100 grand seems to be bothering people? Everything else seems fine. Is that correct? I mean, why does that affect the way you do something? What we give on this initial, what we agree to today, why does that affect how you structure something? That's where I'm confused.
The first part didn't have the change of management. It was just a loan.
Yeah, my point was only that if we're gonna be doing this and collateralizing everything, and we knew what the number was gonna be, we could do it at one time instead of doing one set of documents and then having to come back with a second round and replace them or amend them. We just do one set that covers everything.
So we're basically getting it all done at one shot, and we're basically saying if it's 100 grand, we're saying that we're putting our trust in our staff, which I do, that you're gonna be controlling the money and monitoring this. And I mean, I wouldn't want to come back 2 weeks from now and say, oh, we need another 100 grand.
Right. And I think what Rob had brought forth, he believes next week we can probably come in with a fairly accurate snapshot. Is a 50 or 100,000 closer? Is it $250,000? We might not be down to the exact dollar and cents, but we're at least going to be on one of the 3 or 4 bases around the ballpark. I think that's the point. That
Can we do everything today at 30 grand and then up it? And can we get the complete everything done that's in his proposal at 30 grand?
If I could just offer some to try to help answer or bring more information to your question, Commissioner Wagner, is they currently, as of last Friday, had $40,000 in funds. Okay. Payroll is due today and will be made. That will be the first priority on those funds. I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 7 days to address this, to get the discussion that is being had here, to try to allow staff to formalize it through the county attorney's office, through Dave's office, bring it forward to you for consideration, to do it one time, I believe would satisfy the needs of Smithsburg, the safety of Smithsburg, as well as the commissioner's discussion here, I believe.
So staff's recommendation is what?
Come back next week with a more formal plan for you that will include a loan.
We have a motion on the floor.
I guess I want them to have the ability to start the management changes sooner than later. That's my concern. So know you're gonna have the loan and have the ability to do the management changes.
I have a motion on the floor up to 100,000 with all the other conditions that you read to be collateralized within 2 weeks. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that
So are we
accurate?
having a discussion about this next week as well, to take in Rob's suggestion that we have a document to actually look at?
Okay. What I'd like to
I'm
do.
a little confused here.
Yeah, I am too. What I'd like to do, either vote on this motion up or down and restart over again. We've got a motion and so we either vote the motion down and start all over or support it. That's all I'm asking. What do you want? Or withdraw your motion?
I'll withdraw the motion to try to make this easier. Can we do it, and I'm sorry, Kirk, if we can do it in 2 documents to make this easier. But I would like the first motion to have DES and Smithsburg work so that DES has the ability to manage or oversee Smithsburg EMS to change their schedule to a 24/48 work cycle, do a full financial audit, a review of the billing practices, and make sure I got everyone.
Did you get the liquidation?
Liquidation of apparatus not immediately necessary to primary transport services. So I'd like to make the first a motion that Smithsburg and Department of Emergency Services enter into that contract.
Right, there's a first, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
First and a second, any further discussion?
Okay, I just have one question. Sole, what you just said, sole, on the collateral, sole, so you, before you could liquidate, I think.
Yeah,
liquidation.
liquidate
So
apparatus.
if there was an apparatus on there that the commissioners didn't feel as if we wanted to liquidate, will we have that ability to say?
We can take that and bring anything before you before we actually initiate.
I want
a
to make
sale.
sure, I
How
mean,
about that?
not that I don't trust Stafford.
No,
I mean,
no,
it might
that's
be-
fine. I think that's reasonable, and the only thing
And
that
doesn't have
is
to be part
designed
of
to
the
do is
motion. I
create
just wanna
cash.
know that-
Yeah,
that
we'll be
we'll have
fine.
that ability.
We'll be fine with that.
All right,
So this motion does not include a dollar amount.
This is just the management stuff. There's no dollar amount to the loan on this.
I'll second that unless it was seconded already.
I seconded, yes.
we got a first, second, and a third through all this. Any other comment is that for me to make sure that ESAC's consultant included. Okay, I have first and a second. All in favor of the current motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. What else you need now?
And then I would like to, with no dollar amount, so we can, but it's more of a vote of confidence. I'd like to vote that there will be a loan to the Smithsburg EMS at a to-be determined amount by next week. So that we're going to vote on a
Payroll is
loan.
insured.
I'll second it.
Okay, first and a second. All in favor or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There we go. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
patience. Very
Thank
tough
you.
conversations, but thank you, Smithsburg EMS, for what you do.
Thank you.
That management change.
I need a motion to go, well, we're going to recess out to the college, 6 o'clock. See everybody there.
Damn, I get to go home and change yet.